Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is to take the most complex, source-heavy topics and deliver them to you with 100% coverage, ensuring you walk away not just well-informed, but genuinely fascinated.
And today's topic is a big one.
It really is. We are undertaking an ultra-deep dive into a figure who stands right at the intersection of history, theology, and, well, pure, raw power. Kadamattath Kathanar.
This is so much more than a legend. It's really a foundational cultural narrative of Kerala. The sources we have, and we're drawing extensively from Kodarathil Sankuni's landmark Aithihamala.
Specifically the section Kadamattath Kathanar.
Exactly. And that's buttressed by some really exhaustive travel accounts of the Kadamatam church itself. And these sources, they detail a life that is just truly epic.
And our commitment today, our promise to you, is an unabridged exploration.
Yes.
Which means every fact, every mechanism, every specific Malayalam term, we're going to fully unpack it all.
That's the only way to do this story justice.
That is the promise. I mean, we are following this story from the tiniest crushed grain of rice all the way to the death of an entire invading army.
It's an incredible scope.
The Kathanar, the sorcerer priest. He's a figure who achieved really a kind of superhero status by blending Christian faith with prohibited indigenous sorcery.
And it's a story filled with bloodthirsty yakshis, these incredible tests of loyalty, and what has to be the most powerful single iron nail in all of South Indian history.
It really does. What's so fascinating here, I think, is that we're tracking the transformation of Kochu Palos, who starts as this desperate orphan, into a spiritual master.
Right. A man whose goodness, as Janapakarartham, it completely transcended the potentially evil origins of his power.
Because his journey involved 12 years of intense apprenticeship with a tribal chief whose followers,
well,
they were cannibals.
Yeah. I mean, it's a synthesis narrative that is just fraught with tension, and it fundamentally reshaped the spiritual life of his entire region.
Okay, so let's unpack this incredible origin story. Let's start right at the very bottom of the social ladder, in Kadamatam village, where the man who had become the Kathanar was born.
His birth name was Palos, but he was known affectionately as Kuchu Palos, or Little Palos.
And he was born in Kadamatam village, which is in the Kunothanadu taluk of what was then North Travancore.
And when you say humble origins, the sources are just specific and brutal about his family's poverty.
They lived in a Chetapura. What exactly is that?
It's a small, impoverished hut. And that detail is so crucial because it doesn't just signify being poor. It signifies, the absolute lowest rung of economic security.
Life was precarious.
Utterly. And then tragedy struck. Both his parents died, leaving him completely alone. The text calls him an ekaaki.
Solitary. Alone. The depth of that isolation is hard to overstate.
Yeah, the text really highlights this existential crisis. It says he had absolutely no means for daily survival. The term is nithivrithic kumargamilathe.
So he's facing destitution, starvation, really.
Exactly. And this raw, desperate state is what drives him to the church, seeking not just, charity, but a true spiritual haven.
He takes refuge in his local parish, praying with an intensity that can only be born of absolute need.
And it's right there that the first truly consequential intervention happens. The chief vicar, the Kathanar of that parish, he notices him.
Right. And Paulus is described in the sources as good-looking and gentle.
Yeah, and the vicar doesn't just feel pity for him. He feels this strong, almost divine inspiration to take the boy in.
And he doesn't just, give him a job. He elevates him.
He does. The vicar takes Paulus under his care, treating him with putre nervishvesham, which is this deep, unqualified paternal love, like he was his own son.
So in a way, this acceptance by a wealthy and influential figure was Paulus's first miracle of survival.
Absolutely. And because the vicar was wealthy, Paulus received comprehensive care. The vicar recognized not just Paulus's intelligence, but his innately good nature. The term is sushalanam buddhamanam.
So he arranges for external education, making sure Paulus is well-versed in secular knowledge.
Right. But most importantly, he personally taught him everything required for the priesthood.
And the sources show Paulus to be an absolute prodigy.
He really was. Within a remarkably short period, just 5 or 6 years, he became Athena Pudanai Thirnu.
Which means highly proficient.
Highly proficient, not just in Malayalam, the local language, but critically in Syriac.
And we have to pause on that proficiency. Syriac was the liturgical language, right?
It was the sacred language of the early church in India, often referenced as the language of Jesus and his followers, since it's derived from Aramaic. To master Syriac in 5 years, that shows a dedication and an intellectual capacity that just far exceeds the average disciple.
So this is a man built entirely on faith and academic rigor.
Completely.
And this rapid ascent leads directly to his first formal title. He receives the deacon's ordination.
Becoming known as Deacon Paulos, or Palosu Shemashon.
So he's moved from a mud hut to a position of profound religious significance in less than a decade. The stage was set for a lifetime of pious service.
Until a tiger showed up.
Right. The vicar, despite his spiritual devotion, was also a man of means. He had a large herd of cattle.
And a servant was responsible for taking them daily to the nearby mountains and hills for grazing, carrying the standard packed lunch, the pothikoru. It was a fixed, predictable routine.
Until it wasn't.
Predictability ended abruptly. One afternoon, a vigram, a tiger, attacked. It leaped out of the brush, killed one cow, and the rest of the herd just scattered in terror.
And the servant, understandably terrified, runs back and reports the loss to the vicar.
Now, the vicar's love for his cattle, it bordered on the paternal. We've already established his capacity for this deep, familial attachment.
So he immediately organizes an armed search party. Deacon Paulos joins them.
But as they searched, the darkness of the forest just defeated them. They were forced to return home late and unsuccessful.
When they got back, they took inventory. The missing cow was accounted for dead, taken by the tiger.
But then the Kathanar realized his beloved disciple Paulos was also missing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the source material really emphasizes the vicar's emotional reaction. He was so distressed he couldn't genuinely eat. He only pretended to eat, and he waited up sleeplessly until midnight, just constantly praying for Paulos' safe return.
Meanwhile, Paulos is just hopelessly lost. He'd been searching in vain for the scattered cattle.
And the lore introduces a fascinating supernatural element here. It suggests his total disorientation was caused by Pishikukul demons blinding his senses, deliberately diverting his path.
And this supernatural diversion results in some extreme spatial confusion.
It does. Paulos realized he'd been walking for approximately 12 Nashikas. A Nashika is an ancient unit of time. It's roughly 24 minutes.
So he'd been wandering for nearly 5 full hours.
Right, realizing he was severely off course from the expected 2 Nashikas' journey back to the church. The terrain itself, the forest, and maybe this demonic influence, it had swallowed him whole.
And this winding 5-hour journey led him not back to the path of Christ, but directly to the entrance of a vast, formidable cave, a guha.
He was lost, exhausted, and standing on the precipice of his true destiny.
And his moment of stunned exhaustion at the cave entrance.
Yeah.
It was broken instantly.
Instantly. He was seized from behind by this enormous, terrifying figure, an Athipayan Kermuthiaya oral, and just violently dragged down into the cave.
The entry must have been terrifying. Deep, desolate darkness. The term is Garantakaram.
Like falling into the earth itself. But then the scene shifts dramatically. They move into a vast, open cavern lit mysteriously like daylight with numerous lamps.
So the isolation is replaced by a community. A terrifying one.
Exactly. Paulos was brought before a tribunal. A serious chieftain sat surrounded by naked, subservient, and terrifying figures. And Paulos, the pious deacon, just stood there paralyzed by fear, mentally clinging to God as his only defense.
And the threat wasn't just imprisonment. It was consumption.
The text makes this perfectly clear. These horrific figures approached the leader, asking for permission, and this is a chilling quote, to cut up and share him. Marichu panku vechu thina koleto.
So they were confirmed cannibals. Manusia bujikal. Human eaters.
Explicitly. And this is the moment where the legend just pivots. Instead of instant death, the chieftain surprisingly dismissed the cannibals.
Why?
He said Paulo seemed respectable and should be tested. He offered him comfort, food, rest, bathing. A shocking display of hospitality from this group.
But there were conditions.
2 strict conditions: absolute obedience and the understanding that escape was impossible. Dissenters would be instantly consumed.
So Paulos, being intelligent and just determined to survive, he agrees.
Right. He maintained this hope that his faith would eventually guide him to an escape route. And the chieftain, impressed by Paulos' demeanor and intellect, immediately accepted him as a disciple.
And this is where his horrifying but intensive magical education begins.
Yes. The chieftain then reveals his identity. He is a Malasarayan, or Mala Arayan.
And this is key.
It's so key. They were members of an ancient tribal group known to possess this hereditary and extremely powerful knowledge of Mantravadam, which is sorcery, and Indrakalam, which is magic.
So the source of Kathanar's power is explicitly indigenous and tribal. It's not ecclesiastical.
Not at all. And this is where we have to pause, because the conflict is immediate. Survival meant a severe moral compromise for Palos.
He was forced to discard his clothes and live naked, a custom required of everyone there.
Yeah, and for the recently ordained deacon, this was just morally unacceptable, a violation of his priestly identity and modesty. But he had to endure it.
For how long?
For a Vyasavadam, a complete cycle of Jupiter.
12 full years.
12 full years, or Samvalsaram in that cave. And he mastered the Malasarayan's entire repertoire. Indrahalam, which is general illusion.
Like stage magic.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Then Manarhalam, the highest, greatest form of illusion or grand magic. And most significantly, Mantravadam, true sorcery. The command of spirits, the casting of potent spells.
We really need to appreciate that distinction. So Indragelam is about creating believable realities, like making a ship appear on a mango tree or grapes sprout instantly.
Exactly. But Mantravadam is about wielding spiritual force, often demonic or elemental, for real-world consequences, like knocking out guards or binding a yakshi. Palos was now a master of both.
After 12 years dedicated to the craft.
Right. And despite the nature of his captivity, a genuine, really complicated relationship developed. Palos grew to have immense respect and reverence for his guru, the chieftain.
And the guru reciprocated with great affection.
He did, but Palos's loyalty was conflicted. He desperately wished to escape, and the guru, with his deep knowledge of human nature, he knew it.
So the security was intense.
Intense. The guru instituted strict vigilance. Guards, the Kabalakare, watched the cave door 24/7. They took turns staying awake and frequently called Palos's name, demanding he answer Mulanam to ensure he hadn't fled.
That constant pressure, combined with the moral degradation of his situation, it caused Palos such sadness that he lost interest in food and sleep.
And this sadness prompted the confrontation that led to his release. Palos confessed his entire moral dilemma, the desperate need to see his old guardian, the vicar, versus his deep reluctance to betray the guru who had taught him everything.
And the guru, appreciating this rare display of honesty, he declared he couldn't break tradition by allowing him to leave.
But he offered the perfect ethical loophole.
Which was?
He said he would not interfere if Palos used the knowledge he had acquired, his vidya, to bypass the guards and escape on his own.
He accepted this conditional release.
He did. The final step was the sacred oath. The guru demanded Palos swear, irrevocably, never to reveal the location of the cave or the identity of his guru to anyone.
And Palos happily agreed, sought the guru's blessing, retrieved the clothes and cap he had stored away for 12 years.
And fled that very night. He returned to the world, fully ordained in both faith and forbidden power.
So the first real test of his newly acquired vidya was the escape itself.
Yes. He cast a potent spell designed specifically to knock out the guards. And the sources give us a precise timing. The spell lasted for 3 3/4 nashikas.
So that's about 90 minutes.
Roughly 90 minutes of absolute, unguarded freedom. Just enough time to get out of the cavern system and put some real distance between himself and his captors.
And he used that window efficiently. By the time morning arrived and he reached a populated area, the physical toll of the 12 years, the stress, the escape, it had all caught up to him.
He was suffering severe hunger, thirst, and fatigue. He found a small house occupied by a single, desperately poor, elderly widow of Rita.
And when he asked for food, she explained she was completely destitute. She'd run out of rice the day before.
Right, so this sets up the critical magical test. Palos asked her if she had even a single grain orari eudatheriangelum.
And the woman searches her empty basket and finds one tiny, crushed rice grain, a podiari.
That specific detail, crushed rice, it just amplifies the scale of the miracle it's about to happen.
Palos asks her to boil water. When the water is boiling furiously, he tosses in that one crushed grain.
Kuda tunaram kazanjapal. In a short time, the pot was full. Miraculously full, with steaming, nourishing gruel or kanji. The widow was utterly astonished.
This miracle, his second magical feat in the outside world, is so symbolic.
It is. It parallels the feat of Mar Abo, the church's founder, who also performed a rice multiplication miracle. So by replicating the founder's miracle instantly and on demand, Paulus is validating his power as benevolent and rooted in the church's charitable tradition.
Regardless of its source and sorcery.
Exactly. They ate until they were satisfied, and there was still half a pot remaining, a promise of continued sustenance.
Paulus then resumes his journey, traveling about 4 more najikas, so roughly 96 minutes, and arrives back at his old residence by evening.
And the reunion with the vicar, his guardian. It's pure cinematic drama.
The vicar understandably doesn't recognize him after 12 years.
Not at all. He's overjoyed, weeping, calling Palos a son reborn only after Palos identifies himself. And to uphold his sacred oath to the guru, Palos fabricates a story about being imprisoned by cruel men.
So he preserves the secrecy of the cave and the Melisarian tribe.
Right. But this happy reunion is immediately shattered by terror. The church sexton, the Capiar, arrives, terrified, reporting that the church is under siege.
And the assailants are these terrifying giant figures, described as tall palm trees, or Kanathanga.
And black like cast iron, they were preventing the evening prayers from taking place.
Palos recognizes them instantly.
Instantly. These were his former captors, the Malaarian tribesmen who had tracked him down to enforce their law and retrieve the disciple who cheated their guards. They were the wild chieftains, the Kadamattath.
Ignoring the old Kathanar's frantic pleas not to confront them, Palos walks directly into the face of his former masters.
He orders them away from the holy ground, and when they refuse and move to seize him, he demonstrates the true power of his 12 years of apprenticeship.
He uses a vidya, a spell.
A spell of profound incapacitation. They instantly fell unconscious, dropping like felled trees, Verida Marangal.
I mean, you have to imagine the sight. These massive, terrifying figures capable of seizing a man whole, just collapsing in a heap simultaneously before the church door.
The drama of that moment cannot be overstated. The gathered congregation was utterly astonished by the terrifying appearance of these men and the overwhelming instantaneous power Palos wielded.
He later revives them with a counterspell.
He does, but not before delivering a final warning, asking if they wanted a little more confrontation. They quickly retreated, vowing never to return.
And this scene is his spiritual coronation.
It is. He demonstrated that his power was superior to the Malsarian tradition itself, and crucially, that he could use this power to protect the church. Soon after, the higher clergy ordained him Kathanar.
And he was forever known as Kadamattath Kathanar.
And his fame was immediate and immense. He was renowned for curing possessions and afflictions, especially serious demonic troubles like Chothan's troubles.
And while this fame brought wealth, the sources are meticulous in noting he never demanded fees.
Never. He began training disciples, cementing his legacy not just as a priest, but as the founder of the specialized school of sorcery and spiritual practice known as the Kadamattath Sampradayam.
Having established his authority through both ordination and magical superiority, Kathanar then undertook a series of feats that truly define the epic quality of his legend.
And we have to start with one of the most famous encounters in all of Kerala folklore, the binding of the Yakshi.
Panjivankattu Neeli.
Yes, this Yakshi was terrorizing the major trade road connecting Thiruvananthapuram and Padmanabhapuram. And her method was insidious and complex. It capitalized on human desire and weakness.
Her disguise was absolute perfection. She appeared during the day as a supremely beautiful, youthful prostitute. The term is Sarvanga Sundariam Yuvathiyu Maya Veshyas 3.
Right, and that description emphasizes her allure. She wasn't just pretty, she was captivating. And she would initiate contact by asking for chinempu, the lime paste used for beetle chew, offering a charming smile, Sesmitham.
Once she had them engaged, her conversation was mesmerizing. Narmasalapam. No victim could resist.
She would lure them into the nearby jungle where the veneer would drop. She would revert to her true, horrifying form and consume everything. Flesh, bone, blood, leaving only the victim's hair and nails.
And when the road became too dangerous, she started invading settlements.
Attacking Kudidale Kadanam. Yes. Many sorcerers tried and failed to banish her. Kathanar was summoned.
And when he met her, she approached with her usual seductive request for lime. Kathanar agreed.
But the key to his binding spell lies in the specific mechanism he used.
The iron nail.
The Irambani, an iron nail. Iron is universally recognized in folklore as an anathema to spirits. He placed the lime onto the nail, and as he handed it to her, he spoke a potent mantra, a spell, driving the nail straight into her head.
The crucial detail here is perception. Because the spell was so powerful, she perceived the nail insertion only as receiving the lime.
Exactly. It bound her, rendering her completely powerless. Shakliya Thaitirnu. The terrifying, blood-drinking spirit was instantly reduced to following him like a docile servant, a dasi.
And they traveled together for 4 or 5 days until they reached Kayamkulam, where his elderly widowed maternal aunt lived.
And the aunt, seeing this beautiful young woman with her nephew, took her in and out of pure affectionate concern, decided to comb her hair.
And as she's combing, she finds the iron nail protruding from the Yakshi's head.
She misunderstands it as a pitiful injury, exclaims, "Kashayam Than! What a pity!" and immediately pulls it out.
And this small, unintentional act of kindness severs the magical binding.
Instantly, the Yakshi reverts to her original form and vanishes. Ajishai Bhavikukayum.
Kathanar immediately realized his mistake and pursued her north, knowing her magical trajectory. The chase led him to the river crossing at Manar.
Right, and the ferryman confirmed he'd just taken the Yakshi to the Panayanarkavelda bank. Knowing he couldn't wait for a boat, Kathanar cast a spell to immobilize her temporarily on the far bank.
And here is the spectacular flourish that really defines his style.
It's incredible. Instead of waiting for a conventional vessel, he cut a thucanila, a large plantain leaf from a banana plant,
Put it on the water.
used it to paddle across the river, and confronted the immobilized spirit directly, standing on a banana leaf like a magical gondolier.
The final pact was laid out starkly.
Incredibly starkly, Kathanar offered her a choice: live at that spot forever without harming any living creature, or he would slaughter and offer her in sacrifice a Ruthu Hombakam.
Which implies utter spiritual destruction.
Right, so she chose the former, swearing a sincere oath.
And the Panayanarkaville Yakshi, or Perunal Yakshi, remains bound there to this day.
She lives invisibly, but is sometimes sighted on specific, ritually significant days. New moon, Friday at midnight, appearing either as a beautiful woman or, more terrifyingly, as a burning fire, Kuthuna Thayaitam.
But the sources affirm that since that pact, she has never harmed anyone. Kathanar's peers were, naturally, also powerful. He maintained a close friendship with Kunchaman Matil Muthapati, but there was this subtle rivalry and Uthadukam.
Right. Padi derived his fame from his superior control over chathans, or powerful servant spirits. He believed Kathanar lacked this specific skill.
And Kathanar, conversely, felt Padi lacked his mastery of high Indrajalam.
So Kathanar initiated the duel subtly. Padi often used invisible chathans to propel his boats. Kathanar mimicked this, arriving at Padi's landing in a boat with no crew, having merely instructed the boat itself to take him.
A clear magical sleight. He's questioning Padi's perceived monopoly on spirit control.
Exactly. And Padi responded with a spectacular counter-challenge. Kathanar insisted on departing for Changanassery. When he reached the landing, his boat was gone.
Gone where?
Kathanar looked up and spotted it, impossibly, on top of a large mango tree. Mavinte Mukalu.
Unmistakably the work of Padi's chathans.
Right, demonstrating their skill in transportation magic. Kathanar demanded that Padi use his chathans to retrieve the boat. Padi, entrenched in his pride, refused.
And this is where Kathanar issues an ultimatum that goes beyond magic and targets Padi's most sacred social obligation: family honor.
He threatens to use a spell to force the women of Padi's household, the Anthajanangal, the inner chamber ladies, to emerge naked, Yavashtha Kalakai, climb the tree, and bring the boat down themselves.
And in that cultural context, public exposure and degradation of the women of the house was the single greatest dishonor imaginable.
Catastrophic. Padi initially doubted the threat, but Kathanar was a master of Mantharadam and began the spell. Before he could even finish speaking, the women began to emerge.
And Padi, facing imminent social ruin, just collapsed.
Instantly, he pleaded, "Ayo, my Kathanar, do not disgrace me." He immediately commanded his chathams to return the boat.
The boat instantly reappeared and the women instantly retreated.
And this demonstration proved two things. Kathanar's power was greater, and Kathanar was willing to use it strategically to enforce lessons.
And the two men immediately swore a sincere oath to abandon their rivalry and live in harmony. Yurjupodam Snehatodam.
And they kept that peace Ajavantham for life.
The next conflict was purely theological. It involved the arrival of a metropolitan bishop, a Bava, visiting from Jerusalem.
The highest religious authority possible. And Kathanar, playing the gracious host, presented the Bava with rare gifts unavailable in Kerala.
The Bava was delighted, but he made a seemingly casual request for fresh green grapes, Pachamantiring Gakala, assuming they were locally grown.
This provided Kathanar the perfect opportunity to demonstrate his Indrajalam was benign and capable of producing goodness.
Right. Kathanar boasted that nothing was impossible. He could produce grapes, Oru Masra Kazi Unthanumumbu, in an instant by planting a single seed.
And he did it. He planted a grape seed in the churchyard, which immediately sprouted, grew, and produced a sankyam. Countless bunches of grapes. The Bava confirmed they were real in look and taste.
But the seeds of doubt were sown by a suspicious church member.
Right. This informant told the Bava that Kathanar was a great sorcerer, that the grapes were merely Indrajalam, and that Kathanar's house held forbidden sorcery texts, Mantravada Granthangal.
So in a moment of absolute judgment against the occult, the Bava ordered all the texts burned. He believed that true Christian purification would destroy the knowledge.
But the knowledge itself refused destruction. As the texts were committed to the fire, they rose up and flew into the sky like birds, remaining airborne and untouchable.
Wow.
Yeah, the Bava and his company watched, utterly failing to destroy even a single manuscript. It's highly symbolic. The knowledge Paulus acquired was elemental and spiritually potent enough to resist ecclesiastical command.
The Bava confronted Kathanar, forbidding the practice as unchristian.
And Kathanar's defense defined his legacy. He argued he never harmed anyone, never went against God, and requested permission to continue using his knowledge exclusively for Jnanopakaratham.
For the public good.
For the public good. And following an intense, passionate debate, Vadaprativedanggal, the Bava finally relented. He blessed Kathanar and permitted him to use his magic freely.
Which is an incredible compromise that formalized the fusion of high Christian authority and indigenous sorcery within the bounds of beneficence.
Absolutely.
And Kathanar's powers were soon tested on a geopolitical scale. When the aggression of the Dutch, the Lantakara, became unbearable, the ruler of Kochi, the Kochi Dempuran, sought Kathanar's aid.
And Kathanar provided the king with a weapon imbued with spiritual force, an arrow consecrated with a spell, or Rambu Japichu Koduthitu. He instructed the king to shoot it into the Dutch camp, the Palayam.
And the result was unlike any conventional battle.
Not at all. Upon the arrow's impact, the entire Dutch force suffered Buddhabramam.
Mental delusion. Madness.
Total madness. They were driven insane, turning on each other, cutting and stabbing until all were dead. This use of sorcery as a form of mass psychological warfare ended the Dutch threat to Kochi instantaneously.
Beyond warfare, Kathanar was also intensely protective of his own sacred image.
Yes, the Padeni incident. Padeni is a temple ritual performance involving various costumes. In the past, a Kathanar character was included.
And Kathanar witnessed a performer mocking him in the Kathanar costume, performing vulgar gestures, gashtakal, and speaking obscenities, asafyangal.
He reacted instantly and violently. He used a spell that caused the performer to fall unconscious and begin beating himself violently on the chest with a clenched fist until he was near death.
The Padeni group immediately realized Kathanar was the source of this devastating punishment.
They did. They quickly apologized and were forced to swear a binding oath to never use the Kathanar costume again. Kathanar cured the man, and the costume was permanently banned from the tradition.
So it serves as a stark warning. His power was for public good, but his authority was not to be mocked or abused.
Precisely. And finally, his literary contribution. The legend states Kathanar authored countless texts on sorcery, similar in scope to famous ancient works like Mantrasaram or Yantrasaram.
But these texts were written in his own specialized complex language.
Right, ensuring only properly trained disciples could access them. Though his family line ended with him, his self-written biography, contained within those manuscripts, made his life known after his death. The tradition holds that while he might have practiced black magic, Abhikarakriyakal, early on, he utterly abandoned it, dedicating his profound powers solely to justice and public good.
Kathanar's monumental life is anchored in the physical reality of the Kadamattath St. George Orthodox Church, which stands today on a hill near Kalantri in Ernakulam.
And it's still a massive pilgrimage center, attracting followers from many faiths. To understand Paulus's legacy, you have to understand the church's established prehistory.
It's ancient, believed to be over 1,200 years old, from the 9th century A.D.
Long before Paulus became Kathanar, it was built by Mar Abo, or Mar Sador, a bishop from East Syria or the Middle East. And Mar Abo was not just a theologian, he was a miracle worker himself.
He cured the chronic illness of the daughter of the local ruler, the Kadamattath Kathanar.
And as a reward, the ruler gifted the land for the church. And significantly, Mar Abo also performed a rice multiplication miracle, multiplying 2 rice grains for a poor widow.
A feat explicitly paralleled by Paulus upon his escape from the cave.
Exactly. The narrative cleverly links the 2 figures. The widow's son was said to have converted, became Deacon Paulus, and was later ordained by Mar Abo as the very first Kathanar in charge.
So this positions Kadamattath Kathanar not as the originator of the church's power, but as the heir and supreme synthesist of an established miracle-working tradition.
A tradition started by an Eastern bishop.
Yes. And Kadamattath Kathanar's mortal remains, his kabaradam, they're interred inside the church itself.
They are. It provides a physical focus for devotion, They're marked by a casket-like structure and crosses on the left side of the altar. Devotees visit this spot seeking success, or karasidi.
There's also another key relic that connects Pallas directly to Marabo.
The hand. When Mar Abo died in Thevalakara, Pallas was performing mass when the bishop's ring dropped from his hand, signaling the death. He immediately journeyed there for the burial.
And when Pallas prayed at the tomb.
Mar Abo's right hand, miraculously separated from the body, rose and blessed him.
And Pallas brought this powerful relic back to Kadamattath and interred it in the wall of the Madbaha, the sanctuary.
Right. And the sources confirm that models of this hand are still visible near the altar, physically symbolizing the apostolic succession and blessing passed from the founder to the sorcerer priest.
The church architecture itself is a testament to this cultural fusion.
It is.
Yep.
It contains a Persian cross, confirming Mar Abba's Eastern Syrian origin. But it also features a traditional Natakasala, a stage or platform common in temples, highlighting the synthesis of Christian architecture with indigenous practice.
And then there are the scars of the assault.
A visible crack persists below the attic. It's believed to be the spot where the Malo-Arayan tribesmen, in their desperate attempt to recapture Palos, struck the walls with an iron chain when the church door miraculously refused to open.
And despite repeated renovation attempts to seal these cracks,
the legend says they persist as a physical, indelible record of Kathanar's protective magic.
And finally, the most potent physical symbol of Kathanar's dangerous power, the secret vault. The church attic still houses a vault secured by a staggering 27 locks.
27 locks is an extreme measure of precaution. This vault contains the original palm leaf manuscripts inscribed with his full repertoire of tantric spells.
And the local belief is absolute. These texts must never, ever be read without simultaneously knowing the counterspell.
The ancestors secured them this way to prevent the accidental release of powerful, potentially malevolent magic into the world, a testament to the gravity of the knowledge Pallas wielded.
It's worth noting the church is under the Archaeological Survey of India, so all changes must be approved meticulously to preserve this unique structure, which houses both a saint and a magical arsenal.
And the legacy permeates the immediate geography. Just 150 meters away stands the smaller Poyidam Church, which marks the exact site of Kathanar's former house.
And adjacent to this site is the famous Poyidam Well, or Pathalam, the underworld well.
Right, which is now covered by a net for safety. The name Poyidam means place of going and coming, stemming from the belief that Kathanar used this well as a route to visit the Pathalam, the underworld, or perhaps more logically, to access his former guru's cave.
Maintaining that vital link to his power source.
Exactly. And what stands out here is the persistent, controversial nature of the worship. Devotees, many of whom are non-Christians, still offer sacrifices at this well.
And these are very specific non-Christian offerings.
Live chickens with slit throats, money, and bottles of arak or liquor poured into the well. The church doesn't encourage these practices, but they are permitted as an enduring local custom.
Which shows the deep syncretic nature of his worship across religious lines. We should also mention the Kadamattath cave, a nearby spot also associated with Kathanar, said to be where he practiced his magical powers.
Ultimately, the legend resolves the conflict of his origin by emphasizing his moral trajectory. He is presumed to have used black magic, Apikarakriako, but abandoned it completely, ensuring his power was dedicated solely to justice and Janapakarartham.
What an incredible scope. We've tracked every thread of this source material, from the crushing poverty of the Chetapuro to the forced nudity of the Vyasavadam apprenticeship, the duel of the boat on the Mavinte Mukhalil, the defeat of the Dutch army by Buddhabrahman, and the enduring mystery of those 27 locks.
His feats, his Adbhuta Karmathangal, are rightly described by the legend as uncountable, a samkham.
The power of Kadamattath Kathanar lies precisely in the tension we've explored. He is the ultimate cultural hero because he absorbed forbidden knowledge, the Malayayan sorcery, and purified it through Christian intent and action.
He created a unique model of spiritual authority, a highly ethical magician who was more powerful than both demons and conventional religious rivals.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We discussed the Poyidam well, the Pathalam, where devotees, including non-Christians, still pour liquor and offer live sacrifices to the site of his house. Why, decades, even centuries after Kathanar's earthly presence is gone, does the Christian church permit rituals involving slit chickens and arak at the well of one of its priests?
What did the willingness of institutions and communities to embrace this messy, syncretic blend tell us about the foundational human need for supernatural aid against hardship?
It suggests that when life is hard, people will seek power wherever it proves effective.
Even if that power comes from the cave and not the altar.
A question that resonates through every corner of belief. Thank you for joining us for this ultra deep dive into the unabridged magic of Kadamattath Kathanar. We'll see you next time.